Ethan Parker had always been the kind of man who valued trust above all else. To him, relationships were sacred, especially his marriage with Julia. Their life in the picturesque suburb of Oakwood was a patchwork of fabric and comfort, filled with laughter, shared dreams, and the innocent chaos of their two children. He worked diligently as an IT consultant, ensuring financial stability while nurturing the family he adored. Ethan thrived in this role, taking pride in providing for Julia and their kids, believing that his hard work painted the foundation of their fairy tale. Yet, it was within that very foundation that cracks began to surface. It started subtly. Julia would work late more often, the smell of unfamiliar perfume lingering long into their evenings when she returned home. Ethan brushed off the signs, attributing them to the stress of her job as an event planner, a field that was increasingly demanding. But on a crisp autumn evening, everything changed. Returning home early to surprise her, he found the house empty. As he poured himself a drink, a muffled sound from their bedroom drew him in. Ethan stood frozen at the threshold, the glass slipping from his fingers and shattering against the floor as he uttered a phrase meant only for his eyes. It was a fleeting image of Julia, bedazzled and grinning at a man Ethan had only seen in passing, a colleague perhaps. Only now, he was entangled with his wife on their sheets. "Ethan's such a fool," Julia whispered, a mocking tone lacing her words as she caressed the man's face. The realization crashed like a tidal wave. Ethan's heart clenched painfully and anger ignited within him, boiling over into an emotion he never knew he could harbor. He scoffed at the irony. He dedicated his life to building a solid home to be met with betrayal. With calculated strides, he stepped into the room. "You think I'm a fool?" His voice resonated with control, even as his insides churned with fury. Julia's eyes turned from that of the other man to her husband, widening in shock. "Ethan, she stammered, but Ethan cut her off, the weight of his words as sharp as glass. "Don't. Save it. You don't get to explain this. You don't get to spin this into some frayed narrative of love lost." He took a step forward, the gravity of the moment suffocating. Julia whimpered under the sharpness of his gaze, while the other man hastily donned his clothes, vulnerability blatant against Ethan's brazen power. The confrontation spiraled into a cacophony of shattered dreams. The man bolted out, whispering an apology as he fled, leaving Julia alone, now faced with Ethan's wrath. This isn't just cheating. It's a spiral of deceit. He marched over to their shared desk and flung open the laptop, revealing a trail of incriminating exchanges, photographs, proof of her betrayal. "You think I won't act? I will burn your world to ashes." Julia's expression turned from surprise to defiance. "Hey, you wouldn't dare." However, her laughter was brittle, masking the fear that crested on the edges of her eyes. "Oh, I will," he retorted, feeling an intoxicating rush of power. This wasn't just about vengeance. It was about reclaiming his life, his family, his identity, in every way he'd been robbed of them. Ethan initiated a meticulous plan like a maestro, orchestrating a symphony of revenge. He began by freezing all shared accounts, moving funds that Julia had squandered on her fling. He meticulously scrutinized their finances, discovering lavish spending sprees on hotels and dinners. The suffocating feeling of rage transformed into a steadfast determination. He was ready to dismantle the life that had betrayed him piece by piece. Through weeks of furious preparations, Ethan skillfully prepared for his counterattack. He gathered evidence, the photographs, the emails, the glaring proof of Julia's infidelity, to present at the eventual divorce hearing. Each document became a stepping stone towards his liberation, illuminating the grim reality that Julia had tried to conceal. With the knowledge of what was coming, Ethan unleashed the final blow during a charity gala, an event absent of the mundane, meant to impress and connect. He had reserved a special table adorned with flowers, the facade of civility hiding the tempest raging underneath. When Julia arrived, dressed in that elegant gown meant to dazzle, he signaled for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his infamous baritone commandeering the room. "Here's a little truth to share." He unfolded a series of images and, in an act of immense bravado, plastered the truth of Julia's betrayal across the elegantly draped table. Gasps filled the air, shocked murmurs. Then he pointed at Julia, his voice laced with unyielding judgment. "This is the woman who thought she could weave a web of lies. This is how she repays trust." The laughter and scorn that followed pierced through Julia like knives, and as Ethan stepped off the pedestal of humiliation, he felt no remorse. Instead, an exhilarating wave of freedom swept over him. Julia stood there, the facade of poise crumbling, as everyone who had once praised her turned their backs. The room buzzed with electric tension as the laughter faded into audible whispers, each comment steeped in disbelief and disdain. Julia's cheeks burned crimson, the spotlight revealing her for what she truly was: a liar, a betrayer, an outcast. Ethan relished the moment, feeling the heat of quiet revenge spread through his veins like wildfire. He had staked his claim, not just on their marriage, but on his dignity, reducing Julia to nothing more than a charade. "Don't you dare leave," he called out, as Julia attempted to back away from the judgmental eyes that surrounded her. "You wanted the world to see me as a fool. You will wear this humiliation like a cloak, and you will own every consequence of your actions." Her lips trembled as she searched for words that seemed to choke in her throat. "Ethan, please, this isn't fair. Fair?" he spat, his tone a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Fair is getting up each morning, putting in the hard work to build a future, and coming home to the one person you trust, only to find that trust shattered by another man's hands." He took a deep breath, steadying his voice amid the rising tide of emotions. "No, Julia, you don't get to play the victim now. You carved this void, and you'll learn to live with it." Shattered glassware crunched underfoot as he turned, allowing Julia to stand alone in her ruins, her allure stripped away by the glaring attention of others. He took satisfaction in the realization that she could never come back from this public disgrace. The people who witnessed this betrayal would echo her faults through their society, condemning her to isolation. The glares of mutual friends morphed into looks of pity for Ethan and contempt for Julia. This was her reckoning. Through the aftermath of the gala, Ethan initiated the divorce proceedings, meticulously laying out claims for damages and custody of their children. Each file and document reflected his resolve, as he summoned witnesses who could confirm Julia's neglect and deceit. Despite the impending emotional toll, Ethan found solace in the position of power he now held, one that Julia could no longer distort. Julia's life unraveled as quickly as her deceit had woven it. Other families, once welcoming her with open arms, shunned her. "You're no longer a part of our circle," whispered Rebecca, once a friend, now a blunt reminder of disdain. Alone with her guilt, Julia watched as the mockery spiraled around her. The lover she once cherished abandoned her without a second glance, realizing that the thrill of an affair was dulled when the stability of riches crumbled. He left her with only a void, as dry and unforgiving as her future. As the divorce hearing approached, Ethan's strategy became sharper. He presented the evidence meticulously, each moment in court akin to a courtroom drama that bore witness to the spun lies. His attorney, Laura, spearheaded the charges against Julia with unwavering tenacity. She painted a picture of a perfect life while crafting the darkest lies behind closed doors, Laura declared, pointing at the exhibits Ethan had gathered. This betrayal is not just emotional. It has financial implications that cannot be overlooked. Every blow against Julia was calculated, a wrecking ball aimed to dismantle the very existence she had built on deceit. The financial impact hit hard. Their joint assets were frozen, Julia's credit cards canceled. The comfort and security she had long relied upon dissipated like mist, leaving her scrambling for a lifeboat that would never appear. When the judge announced custody would favor Ethan, stating the detrimental environment Julia had created, a cold chill settled in the courtroom. She had become an echo of the very person she had betrayed. In the final showdown, Julia approached Ethan in the corridor outside the courtroom, her talk of reconciliation laden with desperation. "Ethan, I messed up. Can we just start over? I can change." He shook his head, a bemused look crossing his face. "You think this is your chance? After everything?" He stepped forward, invading her space. "You don't get to redefine betrayal. You've burned this bridge so fully that even your words have no heat left." He witnessed the cracks in her facade deepen, and in a swift movement, he took out his phone, capturing her pleading expression. "What will you tell your friends, your family? That I was too harsh? Or that your actions led you here? You've become a cautionary tale, Julia. Your recklessness has stripped you of every last shred of respect." The victory was palpable, suffusing Ethan with an unexpected strength. He didn't simply want the mere divorce. He wanted to reshape a life that Julia had nearly shattered. The children, their innocence threatened, remained his priority. With the tumult behind him, the road ahead was clear. Ethan transformed the pain into passion, delving into projects he had left on the back burner while nurturing his children through their grief. He navigated their delicate emotions, reinforcing their sense of stability and security. Months later, at a school function, Ethan stood alone, yet surrounded by the warmth of parenthood. Julia's absence was as loud as any argument, her name spoken in hushed tones, shunned behind polite smiles. As he laughed with the other parents, scratching the itch of camaraderie, he felt the weight of his triumph settle comfortably over him. That's when he noticed Julia at the edge of the gathering, her reflection ruffled and worn, an echo of the woman he once loved, standing at the battlefield of her own creations. Ethan turned, smiling at the parents beside him, feeling the pang of the past recede like the tide. He had chosen to rise above the ashes, emerging unscathed, while she remained engulfed in the consequences of her choices. "Let them whisper," he thought, turning away from her gaze once more. "They don't know what it means to rise." This victory was no longer just about revenge. It was a testament to self-restoration, a manifestation of strength, resilience, and self-respect, reborn from betrayal's ashes. The echoes of their past faded slowly but surely, morphing into distant memories over time. For Ethan, the path forward was no longer torturous. It became a space of renewed vigor. He poured himself into his career, landing a promotion that he had always sought, allowing him to secure better opportunities for his family. As he climbed the corporate ladder, he forged new connections that fortified his standing both professionally and personally. Leaving the toxic vestiges of his prior life behind, he focused on building an environment where trust could flourish again, especially with his children. Life with the kids blossomed into a tapestry of joy and shared adventures. Ethan found fulfillment in their mundane yet cherished routines, movie nights, impromptu road trips, and baking sessions that often turned into delightful disasters. For the first time in years, he felt unburdened, as if the shackles of betrayal were replaced by a fierce commitment to nurturing the lives of those who mattered most. As seasons changed, the lingering shadow of Julia at the fringe of their lives remained. Quietly, she resurfaced in the children's environment. Whispers from other parents about her falling back into familiar patterns filled the air. At soccer games, every glance in her direction pierced Ethan, puncturing the newfound peace he had crafted. He would see her frail attempts to engage, face gaunt with unresolved issues, every whisper exchanged at the sidelines a reminder of their tumultuous history. At one such game, he witnessed Julia approach one of their children. Innocently, she crouched down, attempting to engage. A mix of emotions washed over Ethan as he watched Timmy, their son, look between them, his brow furrowing. It was a poignant scene, the mother pleading for acceptance, while Timmy's trust had been fractured by the very person who should have protected it. "Mom, I'm busy," the child murmured, retreating behind Ethan, who instinctively shielded him. Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. The vulnerability of his son reminded him that the wounds of betrayal often cut deeper than any blade. Deciding enough was enough, he approached Julia, anger threading through his words. "What are you doing here, Julia? You think showing up to games will erase the damage you've done?" Her face twitched at the confrontation, a mix of guilt and indignation flooding her features. "I'm his mother, Ethan. I have a right to know him, to be here. I've changed." There was desperation in her voice that cut through him, but also an emptiness that shimmered beneath the surface. "Changed? That's rich," he retorted, disdain lacing his words. "You want to be a mother? Then prove it. Be consistent. Get your life in order before you waltz back into ours under false pretenses." For a split second, Julia's mask cracked. "I know I made mistakes. I just want a chance to make things right." Ethan scoffed. "A chance? This isn't a game." "You lost that right the day you chose betrayal over duty." He stepped back, adding, "You're not here to play the redeeming mother. You need to work for it, and our son needs to see proof, not speculation." Julia hardly moved as he left, a myriad of emotions passing over her features. But Ethan was unyielding. The encounter solidified his resolve to keep her at bay until she truly demonstrated her commitment to healing her fractured relationship with the children. Days turned into weeks, and he redirected that tension into his work. He began volunteering at the local community center, aiding families grappling with hardships similar to his own. Conversations flowed with single parents, sharing their struggles. And for the first time since the rupture, Ethan found camaraderie and shared experiences. As winter ended, a charity event was suggested, an annual gala aimed at raising funds for underprivileged families. The community rallied, and without prior knowledge of Julia's intentions, they each volunteered, drawn by the promise of contributing to something greater than themselves. On the night of the gala, Ethan dressed sharply in a tailored suit, the aura of confidence radiating from him, a far cry from the man crushed under betrayal. As he moved through the crowd, laughter and camaraderie filled the air, echoing in the cavernous hall adorned with blue and silver decorations. But it felt more than just a celebratory atmosphere. It pulsed with potential, the kind that could bridge families together. Suddenly, he spotted Julia across the room, dressed in hues of blue that shimmered like ice. Their eyes met, and in that heartbeat, the festival of emotion flooded back, past regrets, shattered trust, and an inkling of sympathy. Ethan approached her warily. "You decided to come?" "I did," Julia replied defensively, eyes diverting from him. "I want to be involved again. To show the children I'm serious." "So just showing up is enough?" he questioned, crossing his arms. "What makes this time different, Julia?" She hesitated, her courage faltering. "Because I'm actually trying this time. I want to work toward being better, toward being their mother." "Valid actions speak louder than words," he stated firmly. "They need consistency. You've shown that you cannot be trusted. Do you know how long it will take to rebuild that?" "Longer than I want. But I'm willing to try," she confessed, her voice softening. Ethan inhaled deeply, weighing his response. Should it be a harsh rebuttal or a cautious opening? Galus bustled around them, the hum of conversation, distant laughter, and music wrapping them in a cocoon of chaos yet clarity. Then, "Take the first step," he finally said. "I'd join in what we have created instead of trying to rewrite the past, as if it were not marked with the scars of your choices." Julia's eyes shimmered with unanticipated resolve, and for a moment, Ethan thought he glimpsed the woman he once loved, lost yet yearning for redemption. But as the evening progressed, it became evident that Julia's attempts to forge connections were met with reservation from the other families. There was an air of disquiet around her, strands of gossip rippling through gatherings at the bar, the jarring laughter silencing whenever her name came up. Ethan found it impossible to ignore the ongoing ballad of judgment echoing through the open space, a juxtaposition of people avoiding her while he stood protective of his children. They were drawn away to safety with snares of suspicion, a community once welcoming turning cautious. As the night wore on, Ethan took a moment away from the jarring chaos, leaning against the balcony to overlook the moonlit landscape. He found a rhythm within his thoughts. Amid the encounters with Julia, he recognized the duality of heartbreak and responsibility. Her transformation would not come wrapped in a neat package. It was marred by skepticism. But perhaps there was space for growth, albeit cautiously. Julia stepped out, lingering behind him quietly for a moment before she made her presence known. "Ethan," she began, a whisper mingling with the night air. He turned to meet her gaze. Tonight, she seemed more vulnerable, her intentions stripped bare. "Thank you for giving me a chance tonight. I know I need to earn it, but I want them back." "What they need is something concrete, Julia." "Show them you are committed," he replied, the agitated tone still simmering beneath his surface. She nodded, laughter erupting from a nearby gathering, causing her figure to momentarily flinch. "I have to earn it, right?" "Yes," he confirmed, his voice steady. "You must choose daily to be present beyond your past. Prove it to them, and they may forgive in time." Her shoulders sagged slightly, but a flicker of determination sparked in her eyes, one he hadn't noticed for a long while. "I will. I want to change how they see me." Truth and actions, Julia, they go hand in hand. Then, the noise of laughter drew them back in, the ebb of emotion shifting as the night wore toward its conclusion. The possibility of a long road toward healing hung heavy in the air, yet there was still an undeniable fracture, demanding patience. As the gala wrapped up and people began to drift away, Ethan felt a renewed sense of hope as he stepped into his new life. There would be hurdles ahead, but with each stride they faced a world ripe with the chance of regeneration, both individually and as parents. And perhaps, somewhere beneath the surface scars, he realized forgiveness for the past may just yield the future they all deserved. The journey would be long and complicated, a calculus of decision, time, and action. But for now, the night felt open, a space where possibilities awaited, marked by the shadows of their history, yet illuminated by the bright flicker of what could be. The weeks that followed the gala became a crucible of emotional trials for Ethan and Julia. Their tentative truce bore the weight of unfinished business, the shadows of the past looming over them. Ethan strived to create opportunities for Julia to reconnect with their children, understanding that mere presence wouldn't suffice. It required intentional actions that would demonstrate her commitment. Each day tested their boundaries, fraying at the seams, yet cautiously weaving the fabric of a new relationship. Ethan allowed Julia to take part in the children's activities, a soccer game here, a school function there, but his protective instincts kept him vigilant. He often found himself in the role of mediator, navigating the choppy waters of their shared history, while sprouting the seeds of a new foundation. Yet every step forward felt precarious, as Julia's past decisions weighed heavily on their interactions, serving as a constant reminder of what had transpired. At basketball practice one evening, Ethan noticed Timmy's reluctance to engage with Julia despite her efforts. As she attempted to coax him into participation, the boy's eyes reflected a mixture of uncertainty and hurt. It stung Ethan to see his son struggle with emotions he himself was beginning to unravel. "You can do this," Julia encouraged, but her voice faltered against the backdrop of Timmy's hesitation. Ethan stepped in, aware of how quickly patience could evaporate. "Hey, buddy," he said, kneeling beside Timmy. "You okay?" Timmy shrugged, his lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't want to embarrass myself. Honestly, we all stumble sometimes. Remember how many times Dad tripped during soccer practice?" Ethan chuckled, lightening the mood. Julia smiled, recognizing the tactic but maintaining her vigil. "I just want you to have fun for a change. It's not about winning, right?" Timmy nodded slightly but remained unconvinced. As the practice continued, Julia's determination visibly wavered with every missed pass, amplifying the discomfort that hung between them. Though Julia's heart was in the right place, her ability to break through Timmy's barriers often felt like an uphill battle. That evening, as they settled in for dinner, Ethan couldn't shake off the nagging feeling of concern. "How do you feel about practice today, Timmy?" he asked, seeking insight as they shared a homemade pasta dinner. "It was okay," Timmy responded quietly. "Just okay?" Julia pressed, her hopeful gaze landing on him. "I don't know. I just want to get better," Timmy admitted. "But it feels like I can't. It's hard to keep trying when I feel like I can't trust you." The words stung in the air, echoing the unresolved fracture that lingered at the edges of their family life. A silence enveloped the table. Julia's expression hardened, and she swallowed hard. "I understand that, but I am trying, and I want to be there for you every step of the way." "Trying isn't enough," Timmy replied, his disappointment palpable. "You've missed so much because you chose to lie." The truth hung between them, stark and unyielding. Ethan felt the urgency to alleviate the tension, but recognized the validity of Timmy's feelings. "It's tough, buddy. It might take time to build trust, and it's perfectly okay to feel how you do." With deep breaths, Julia steeled herself. "Timmy, I know I have a lot to earn back, but I want you to see that I really care, and I'm working my hardest to fix things." "Show me then," Timmy challenged, pulling away slightly in his chair. The unyielding honesty of a child held raw power, but also vulnerability in the face of disappointment. The conversation that evening reverberated long after, leaving a profound impact on them all. Julia realized the gulf between her intentions and the reality of their relationship, a chasm only she could bridge through consistent actions. In the days that followed, Julia discovered new depths of patience within herself. She dedicated her time to volunteering at the community center, not just attending events, but actively engaging with children, helping with homework, and organizing after-school activities. Each interaction taught her not just the value of presence, but a genuine commitment to service. As Ethan saw these efforts unfold, he noticed a softening in his own defenses, allowing glimpses of the woman Julia aspired to become. Slowly, he began to witness improvement in her connections with the kids, small but crucial victories. During one afternoon, Julia organized a small picnic outing for Timmy and his friends, reaching out to Ethan for support. "I can make sandwiches and snacks if you can manage logistics." "We can make this a kind of celebration," she suggested, her eyes alight with determination. "I'll handle transport and setup," Ethan agreed cautiously, noting the subtle shift in their collaborative approach. The outing came to life with playful energy, fueling a camaraderie that reminded them of once happier times. As they laid the picnic blanket across the grass, laughter mingled in the air, while Timmy and his friends darted around. Julia, encircled by children, beamed with pride as they munched on her homemade treats. Across the blanket, Ethan caught her eye, recognizing her enthusiasm, a spark of the genuine passion he once fell in love with. This was her taking strides towards healing, one small victory at a time. However, as time progressed, the reflection of past choices still lurked in Ethan's mind. The fear that Julia might revert to her old behaviors gnawed gently at him. Questions about whether her change was authentic lingered in the air like specters. Later that evening, as they cleaned up, Ethan mustered the courage to address the elephant in the room. "Julia, I've seen you make tremendous strides lately, but I still need to be honest. Part of me worries, is this really changing, or are you putting on a show?" Taking a moment to consider his words, Julia looked at him with earnest resolve. "I know I messed everything up, Ethan. Rebuilding trust is harder than I imagined. It feels like I'm climbing a mountain with no clear end. I want you to trust me, not just for your sake, but for our children's. But I understand if you are cautious. I just want you to be genuine for them," he replied, leaning against the table. "Trust is fragile, and I can't say it hasn't been hard for me to move past. I need to feel confident before I can truly let go." "I get it," Julia nodded, wiping her hands on the towel. "You need to see proof. I want to show you I can be different." Her commitment hung heavy between them, electric and palpable. Days passed, and Ethan continued to monitor Julia's transformations, searching for signs of consistency. As she maintained her dedication to volunteering, devoting time weekly to enrich other children's lives, he began to feel a reluctant shift. However, the real test came one fateful night when Julia faced the kind of vulnerability that could either solidify her progression or reveal the cracks in her character. They were attending a community fundraiser, one characterized by mingling, laughter, and joy. Yet, as she slipped into the crowd, the whispers of familiar faces began to circulate, judged by the very people she once counted on. Ethan witnessed Julia's lingering gaze, noticing her confidence waver as past acquaintances discussed her actions. The weight of their disdain, mingled with gossip, hung around her like a fog. How was she even allowed here? One voice conveniently plastered across the event echoed. Julia stiffened, and Ethan instinctively stepped closer to her, offering silent support. But the weight of the whispers continued. "She's untrustworthy," another voice floated past. "She burned bridges." "Can you hear them?" Julia muttered quietly, shame clouding her expression. "What they say doesn't matter. Focus on who you want to be, not who you were," he encouraged gently, but her demeanor grew restless. As the evening wore on, Julia captured an opportunity. She approached a group of mothers, actively discussing the upcoming charity events. There was an urgency in her stride, a chance to reclaim her reputation while emphasizing her ongoing commitment to the community she had once veiled in deceit. "Hi, everyone. I'd love to help with the upcoming fundraiser. I have some great ideas that could really make a difference," she announced, her voice stronger than the doubts swirling within her. Some were hesitant, others unsure. For a moment, silence hung heavy. But then one woman cautiously acknowledged her offer. "You have a lot to prove, Julia, and this isn't an easy task." "I know," she replied, her sincerity shining through. "But I want to actively make amends, and I'm ready for the work." Her willingness carved an opening, a chance to transition from whispers to visible change. Ethan stood off to the side, feeling the tension rinse over him. As the atmosphere fluctuated between skepticism and hesitant eagerness, he admired the fire ignited within Julia. Yet he couldn't shake the weight of anxiety looming. He shifted, remaining that anchor she needed. But how long could she maintain it? The echo of disbelief from the gathering resonated, and each experience reaffirmed how Julia had forged her own challenges. But with determination etched into her demeanor, Ethan found himself unexpectedly humbled, believing once more in what they might become. As fundraising discussions rolled on, a moment of honesty presented itself between them after the event. Outside, Julia sighed deeply, gazing at the stars twinkling above. "That was hard," she confessed. "It was. But you held your ground," Ethan acknowledged. "Being vulnerable isn't easy, yet you took a risk, one that could lead to change." "Do you think I can fix this?" she asked, vulnerability flirting across her expression. "I think you can, but it will take time and honesty. Just remember, through every challenge presented, your past will still shadow you. What you choose to do will define your future," he answered thoughtfully. Julia's eyes sparkled with vulnerability and conviction. "I won't fail," she promised, resolve coursing through her being. At that moment, they shared an unspoken understanding, each catching glimpses of a new beginning. It marked the delicate dance of hope and uncertainty, a balance neither could control entirely. But together they ventured forward, side by side, forging their path in spite of the echoes of the past. As they stepped away from the shadows of their shared history, a kaleidoscope of possibilities unfolded before them. Together they dared to believe in a future defined not by their past mistakes, but inspired by the newfound intention that echoed louder than the whispers. As spring breathed life into their community, Ethan and Julia embarked on a renewed chapter filled with both promise and trepidation. The days fluttered by, each filled with oscillations of effort and emotion, but they were no longer separate entities. They had become partners united in purpose. Julia's commitment to rebuilding her life was evident as she dove headfirst into volunteer work and parenting, the fruits of her labor slowly beginning to show. Ethan watched, half impressed and half apprehensive, as Julia sustained her new routines. The kids, however, were reluctant to show their emotions. Timmy, in particular, remained wary. Though he attempted to engage with Julia during school events and functions, a palpable underlying tension lingered between them, one that was hard to shake off. In the afternoons, Julia would pick up Timmy from school, often bringing small surprises, a new book or a favorite snack. But each gesture was met with stony silence, a wall built from distrust and disappointment. Ethan wrestled with a sense of helplessness, longing for his son to embrace his mother without fear. "It's all right to be unsure, but she's trying," he encouraged Timmy one evening, hoping to smooth the jagged edges of their fractured family. "I just feel different about her," Timmy confessed, his brows furrowing in the dim light of the living room. "I don't want to get hurt again." "It's okay to feel that way, buddy. She hurt you, and it's going to take time to feel safe again." "Just know we're all in this together," Ethan reassured him. "You've got to give her a chance just like I am." Timmy nodded, absorbing the advice, but clearly still grappling with his feelings. Ethan recognized the delicate balance they were navigating, a journey steeped in flux and undulating emotions, which required both faith and patience. Meanwhile, Julia descended deeper into her other responsibilities, diligently planning a community fundraiser, a major event meant to raise funds for underprivileged families. She poured her heart into every detail, determined to showcase her commitment not just to her children, but to the broader community that had once marginalized her. As the days progressed, she corralled volunteers, scheduled activities, and kept meticulous notes, creating a vibrant tapestry of hope and action. Ethan found himself impressed with her diligence, yet remained guarded. The fundraiser loomed like an impending storm, with the potential to either elevate Julia in the eyes of the community or tear apart the progress they had clawed together. He could sense both the excitement and the dread pulsing through the air as the event drew near. One sunny afternoon, Ethan joined Julia in a community planning meeting meant to finalize details for the fundraiser. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, yet beneath that lay an undercurrent of skepticism from a few seasoned parents who were all too wary of Julia's past. He watched her navigate the conversation with personal strength, but noted the cracks as she faced lingering whispers. "Julia, can you elaborate on the logistics for the raffle?" a woman named Kathy asked, her voice dripping with a blend of curiosity and suspicion. "Absolutely. I've coordinated with local businesses to donate prizes, and we'll set up online ticket sales as well. I'm aiming for a family-friendly atmosphere where people will feel welcomed and supported," Julia replied, her voice steady yet tinted with tension, as if she could feel the weight of their eyes. "That sounds great, but will you be putting the effort into it as well?" "Your track record hasn't exactly proven trustworthy," Kathy interjected, the murmurs of agreement from others rippling through the attendees. Julia's expression faltered for only a moment, the pain of old wounds flaring, but quickly masked by resolve. "I understand where you're coming from, and I'm grateful for the chance to prove myself. I genuinely want to do good for our community." Ethan's heart ached for her. The confrontation was slightly reminiscent of a courtroom, an unveiling of past grievances that threatened to swallow any genuine growth. "How can we support this effort and see it through?" he asked, his voice laced with encouragement. "These events can be transformative, and I believe Julia is committed." Kathy looked taken aback, but didn't back down. "Knowing her willingness is one thing, but we need results. Trust means showing up consistently. It won't happen overnight." "I realize that earning trust is a lengthy process," Julia added, her tone steadying even as she wrestled with uncertainty. "I'm committed to moving forward and working hard for our shared goal." As heated voices clamored around them, Ethan could sense the uncertainty resonating through Julia. The palpable weight of the moment nudged at his very core, and he felt compelled to interject. "We've all made mistakes at different points in our lives. Growth doesn't arrive in a single day or meeting. Julia's ready to step up, and I, for one, support her efforts. She's working to help people who genuinely need it." The room stilled momentarily, absorbing the tension. Julia shot him a grateful look, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. No matter the obstacle, they would face it together. The meeting ended, but zeal remained entwined with the tension. In the following weeks, Julia poured herself into preparing for the fundraiser. Ethan supported her as best he could, the bridge between them fortified by shared commitment and the understanding that they still walked on uneven ground. As the day of the fundraiser approached, Julia busily arranged every detail, transforming the community center into an inviting space filled with warmth and light. Hours leading up to the event buzzed with anticipation, but trepidation lingered like a low tide threatening the shore. The event unveiled itself like an ephemeral tapestry of joy as families poured through the doors, mingling, appreciating the effort that lingered in every corner. The atmosphere bristled with laughter, music filled the space, and the air dripped with the scent of baked goods and fresh coffee. But amid the lively pleasantries as Julia mingled with the crowd, she encountered familiar faces, those who had judged her harshly during the planning meetings. She steeled herself for interactions born of past mistakes, her voice steady despite the undercurrent of doubt that crept in with every exchanged glance. "Look at this place. It's wonderful," one woman offered, a hint of surprise filtering through her words. "Thank you. I'm really proud of how it turned out," Julia replied, striving to meet her gaze with openness and sincerity. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere shifted, the community warm and receptive. Timmy watched from the sidelines, finally starting to see glimpses of the woman he had longed to embrace, his mother now sparking with vitality, happiness reflected in her laughter. Yet, as the evening drew towards its climax, the pivotal moment arrived, the much-anticipated raffle drawing. Julia stood at the microphone, her heart racing as she began to describe how the funds would be dispersed within the community, how the donations would impact families in meaningful ways. The crowd fell silent, hooked into her vibrant sincerity. "Now let's draw the first prize," she said, her excitement palpable. But just as she lifted the bag full of tickets, a familiar voice sliced through the audience. "That's the same person who cheated on her husband, right? Look how much they've scraped off the surface. Do you really think she can be trusted?" Gasps crackled in the air, and Julia froze, her heart plummeting as static filled the atmosphere. The woman's accusations echoed loudly as eyes shifted toward her, a moment that threatened to swallow the evening whole. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling a frisson of rage ignite deep within him. "This isn't the time or place for this," he shouted, stepping forward, his protective instincts flaring. "We're trying to build community connections, not drag someone down with gossip. Julia has worked hard to prove herself. Maybe it's time for some of you to reflect on yourselves instead." The tension crackled like electricity, the crowd caught between curiosity and disdain. Faces shifted in uncertainty, and Julia wavered in her stance, her fortitude trembling. "People make mistakes," Ethan continued, his voice unwavering. "Everyone deserves a second chance, and tonight is about shared hope, not division." Julia inhaled deeply, a shard of resolve flaring within her. "I own my past," she said, her voice rising above the murmurs. "I realize the weight of my choices, but I'm here tonight because I care. I want to give back, and I want my children to see their mother working on behalf of others. That means I need the strength of our community beside me, not behind me." As the room simmered with tension, a few brave souls began to clap, tentative applause merging into united support. A swell of voices rallied for her, reclaiming the narrative from whispers into expressions of encouragement. In that instant, Ethan recognized a shift. Julia's moment of vulnerability illuminated her strength. With tears glistening in her eyes, she continued, "Tonight, let's celebrate what we can build together, not the mistakes of the past. I will show you day by day how good I can be." The roar of support erupted, drowning out the dissenting opinions that flickered in the background. Timmy watched, astonished, and a smile crept across his face, pride warming his heart. Even through the trembling uncertainty of the evening, a storm suddenly transformed into an embrace, Julia emerged empowered, a symbol of resilience beneath the quiet layers of doubt. It wasn't just the moment of redemption, it was the cumulative proof that healing could resonate, twisting lives and reshaping futures destined to rise. As the raffle commenced, laughter returned to the gathering, communities united in shared experiences and hope. her commitment finally taking root, and amid all the challenges ahead, they would face them together, stronger, united, and committed to rewriting the fabric of their lives, with layers forged in truth and perseverance. As the raffle drew to a close, the atmosphere of the fundraiser blossomed with renewed energy. Cheers and laughter echoed through the community center, punctuating the air that had once crackled with tension. Julia stood amidst a blend of excitement and relief, her heart racing from the electrifying support she had garnered. The tentative acceptance from the community felt like a lifeline thrown her way, and she clutched it with both hands. Timmy, buoyed by the cheers, found himself inching closer to the stage, captivated by the applause that seemed to embrace his mother for the first time. He watched as Julia's cheeks flushed with happiness, her laughter ringing out pure and unencumbered. For the first time in months, he felt a spark of hope igniting within him. "Mom, you did it!" he called out, unable to contain the joy building inside. His voice broke through the celebratory noise, drawing Julia's gaze. She looked down at her son, her heart swelling as their eyes met. It was a fleeting moment of connection, a small victory amidst the turmoil that had once surrounded them. "Thank you, sweetheart," Julia beamed, her voice full of genuine delight. She stepped down from the stage, abandoning formalities to embrace Timmy in a hug that seemed to absorb all the pain of the past. "You're the reason I'm here, and I'll keep trying for you, I promise," Ethan observed from the periphery, his heart swelling with pride as he watched them. It was not just Julia who was transforming. Timmy's gradual thawing was a sign of their collective journey, and it shimmered with potential. Hope sparkled in the air like confetti. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically. As the evening wore on, people drifted toward Julia, offering words of encouragement and congratulations, while Jeff, the community center director, stepped forward. "You handled tonight with such grace, Julia. We're all proud of you," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you, Jeff. It means the world to have support," she replied, shaking his hand with an air of newfound confidence. The acknowledgement validated her efforts, bolstering her resolve. In the aftermath of the fundraiser, Julia found herself reinvigorated, determined to continue forging connections within the community and build something meaningful. Ethan knew that this fleeting arc of triumph could easily flicker out like a candle's flame, but it was also a reminder of how far they had come. Over the following months, he watched as Julia maintained her momentum, eagerly participating in planning more community events and deepening her connections with local families. She volunteered alongside Ethan, bringing new perspectives into their shared parenting. Though there were still moments of friction, particularly between her and Timmy, each step became a building block toward mutual understanding. Their interactions became more frequent. Julia shared lunch with Timmy at school, joined homework sessions, and offered encouragement during soccer practices. Ethan observed as she maneuvered the cautious landscape they had constructed together, understanding that trust could only be rebuilt over time. One evening, as they prepared for dinner, Timmy approached Julia while tinkering with his toy cars. "Mom, can we practice shooting hoops later?" he asked, his voice softer than before. "I would love that." "Let's head to the park right after dinner," Julia replied, her excitement bubbling. It was a small but significant step. They were transitioning from mere coexistence into open interactions filled with potential. After dinner, they headed to the park together. The sun dipped low, splattering the sky with hues of gold and orange, an invitation for connection. As they shot hoops, laughter echoed, reverberating through the warm evening air. Julia struggled initially but relished the playful atmosphere, allowing Timmy to teach her the ins and outs of shooting. "Just like this, Mom. You've got to point your elbow up," Timmy guided, demonstrating the mechanics. His enthusiasm lit a spark in Julia's heart, and with each basket made, she found herself falling into the rhythm of parenthood that had once felt terribly out of reach. With every triumphant shot and laughter shared, they forged a bond anew. Ethan watched as their interactions blossomed, a tenuous bridge constructed not just of hopes, but genuine investment in one another. Days turned into weeks, and through their shared experiences, cracks within their family slowly healed. Timmy began to embrace Julia's presence with something resembling fondness, a palpable change reflected in his smile. Despite their progress, Ethan knew that the journey remained long and filled with perseverance. He found himself wrestling with the internal conflict of wanting to trust Julia while also maintaining a cautious distance. Her past lingered like a shadow, albeit an ever-fading one, and he grappled with the notion of giving her full control over their lives once more. One afternoon, while prepping the house for a small family gathering, Ethan found Julia nestled amongst the children on the living room floor, her laughter mingling with theirs. He caught a moment of pure, familial joy. The transformation was palpable, yet it stirred feelings of vulnerability disturbingly close to the surface. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Ethan found himself contemplating their future. He ventured into the living room to join Julia, who was tidying up. "Hey," he called softly, breaking the silence. "I've been thinking..." Looking up from her task, Julia sensed the weight of the moment. "About what?" "About everything. What we're trying to build," he began cautiously. "I know we've made progress, but trust doesn't come easy." "I understand," she said, folding down the blanket. "It takes time to heal and reset." "I recognize that." Ethan felt a wave of reassurance wash over him. "I see the changes, Julia. You're passionate, dedicated. It's encouraging, but we're still walking a tightrope." "I know my actions speak volumes," she replied earnestly, locking eyes with him, revealing genuine vulnerability. "But I want to show you I'm committed. Every day, I want to earn it." With the air heavy with something unsaid, Ethan hesitated before exhaling slowly. "What do we do if the whispers come back? If people doubt your commitment again?" Julia's brow furrowed in contemplation, her voice steadying. "Then, we deal with it together. We may not have control over what others think, but we do have ownership over our own actions. I've been reflecting on my choices, Ethan. I truly want to create a different legacy." He nodded, feeling the pulse of sincerity in her words. Suddenly, he felt an inkling that perhaps they could face whatever the world threw their way. "Let's continue to be open. Transparency will be essential. That way, we can both hold each other accountable." Julia smiled softly, feeling reinforced by his willingness to navigate uncharted waters together. "Agreed," she replied, settling next to him on the couch. "A strong foundation will help us stand tall against the storms." The intimacy of that moment wrapped around them, hinting at the possibility that their future might not just be filled with echoes of what once was, but avenues of hope that stretched onward, painted with colors of understanding, commitment, and growth. In the tapestry of their lives, they were stitching together deeper connections built upon the coordinates of forgiveness. The journey would undoubtedly present hurdles, but in that moment, Ethan sensed something stirring within him, a flicker of optimism waiting to ignite their collective path. Together, they would defy the shadows of the past and embrace the dawn of their future, a life built on trust anew, one day at a time. As summer rolled in, the atmosphere in Ethan and Julia's home transformed, much like the shifting seasons. Their efforts to rebuild connections were paying off, with each day offering new opportunities for growth and understanding. Julia continued to immerse herself in community projects, showing the fruits of her labor not only to herself, but to the people around them. Her reputation was slowly shifting. She was no longer just Julia the cheater. She was becoming Julia the committed community member. One afternoon, while preparing for an upcoming block party, Julia enlisted Timmy to help decorate their front yard. The task of draping colorful banners and hanging lights became not just an act of preparation, but a delightful bonding experience, filled with laughter and shared laughter. Timmy's hesitant smiles morphed into genuine joy as Julia encouraged his creative ideas. "Put that one higher," he exclaimed, pointing at a strand of lights. "It'll make the house look like a fireworks show." Julia grinned, adjusting the lights to align with his vision. "You're right. The higher, the better." Ethan stood a few feet away, leaning against the doorframe, watching the scene unfold with a sense of fulfillment. It was incredible how far they had come together. Their new routine felt almost ordinary, yet it was layered with a depth that spoke to their history. But beneath the surface, Ethan felt a quiet flutter of anxiety. He had allowed the recognition of Julia's commitment to sink in, yet the resistance in his heart whispered warnings. Each moment of stability seemed built upon a shaky foundation. Would it really last? Would the community solo be enough for her to withstand any of the harsh judgments still lingering? The week of the block party arrived, marked on the calendar as both a celebration and a test of character. Neighborhood families gathered, laughter spilling into the streets, filling the afternoon air with excitement. The promise of games, food, and community spirit painted a vivid picture of camaraderie. Julia was becoming a bustling hive of activity, her days filled with final touches and last-minute preparations. Ethan joined her, rallying the neighbors to help set up tables for food stalls, organizing chairs for seating. An air of festivity crackled through the block, transforming the atmosphere into a tableau of joy and anticipation. Kids ran about, chaotic and free, their laughter intermixed with the smell of barbecue wafting through the air. As the festivities officially kicked off, dozens gathered under the fluttering banners. Julia stood at the forefront, confidently addressing the crowd. "Thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful for this wonderful community. Together we can support one another, creating connections that uplift everyone." She radiated enthusiasm, the energy invigorating her words. Timmy stood nearby, his eyes shining with admiration as he watched his mother embrace her role. The crowd cheered, a wave of camaraderie washing over them all. Amidst the sounds of celebration, Ethan found himself feeling lighter. This recognition that Julia was transforming from the shadows of her past into an agent of positive change was invigorating. But as he stood among familiar faces, he noticed someone lurking on the fringes. A man Ethan recognized, a neighbor from across the street, Josh, who had been close to Julia back in the day, was observing warily. Josh had never particularly approved of Julia, and he sensed another storm brewing. As the evening unfolded, Ethan continued chatting with neighbors, but a shadow loomed in his mind. He noticed the whispers surrounding Josh, glancing sideways at Julia, arms crossed, his expression darkening. It troubled Ethan, tugging at old fears of betrayal, but he redirected in the moment towards the positive atmosphere around. People began to mingle, children darting between games. Julia stepped aside for a moment, grabbing a drink from the cooler. Ethan took this chance to approach Josh, who still appeared suspicious. "Hey, Josh." "What do you think of the party?" Ethan opened cautiously. "Looks good on the surface," Josh remarked, his tone flat. "But I've seen Julia's type before. I have my reservations." "Reservations?" Ethan probed, a hint of irritation creeping in. "She's been working hard to change. You don't have to keep holding the past against her." Josh frowned, registering Ethan's protectiveness. "You don't know if she's really committed, man. People like her are good at spinning a story. What happens when it's convenient?" Ethan's heart raced, his defenses flaring. "That reflects more on you than her. Have you even given her a chance? She could have stayed down, but she's battling back. Why not encourage that instead?" "My loyalty is to others who've seen the damage," Josh replied, crossing his arms defiantly. "Loyalty doesn't mean you should shut out growth," Ethan challenged, finding his own voice rising. "If you can't see that she's trying, then maybe you've got your own issues to confront." With the tension hanging in the air, Julia returned, sensing the energy shift. "What's going on?" she asked, her expression wary. "Just a friendly chat," Ethan said, while Josh shrugged defensively. As the laughter faded around them, Ethan realized that old claims still held weight. Coming face to face with the whispers from outside their bubble reminded him that despite their evolution, Julia's past would not quietly dissipate into the ether. Society would cling to the remnants of who they believed she was. Later that evening, amidst the festivities, Ethan and Julia found a softer moment alone in a quieter corner of the block, away from the glowing party lights and the chaotic laughter. Julia's expression was pensive, her eyes searching Ethan's. "Did you feel that?" she asked, indicative of the tensions that had shifted during the party. "I did," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's troubling to know some people will define you by your past, regardless of how hard you strive to move forward. I need you to know that I'm fully committed, yet I worry what they may think or say." Julia's voice trembled slightly, her vulnerability piercing through. "You have to be ready for the truth, the realities of this journey. We can't control what others say, but we can build a life centered on truth within ourselves," he replied. Julia nodded slowly, an understanding settling in her eyes. "That's a long road ahead. I'm willing, but I hope it's enough." "It will be enough, Julia. It has to be. We've come too far now not to believe in each other," Ethan reassured her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder, allowing the cool night air to envelop them. But he noticed an undertow winding through him, a worry that both fueled and haunted them at once. Would their collective strength withstand the weight of community doubts? As the night wore on, the tension with Josh lingered in the back of his mind. Yet the warmth of their interactions, Julia's laughter, Timmy's excitement, held deeper truths. Amid the uncertainties, with every shared moment, their story transformed into a testament of resilience. In the shifting tides of self-reflection, they vowed to keep growing, holding tighter to each other as they navigated the potential of their futures. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the hope of building something lasting flickered like the stars hanging overhead, alive and expansive, waiting just for them. As the summer deepened, so did the bond between Julia and Ethan. Their shared commitment to fostering a transparent relationship began to bear fruit. Julia stepped deeper into her role in the community, while also striving to mend her relationship with Timmy. The block party had served as a reset button, a vivid reminder that people were capable of change and that their strength lay in unity. Timmy, encouraged by the positive feedback surrounding the block party, began to engage with Julia more openly. Their afternoons were filled with impromptu gaming sessions, park visits, and cooking experiments at home. The laughter that echoed through their kitchen as they attempted to bake cookies was a sound that had been foreign in recent years, but was gradually becoming a staple of their lives again. One weekend, they decided to engage in a team-building project by creating a small vegetable garden in the backyard. "We could grow tomatoes for salsa," Timmy exclaimed, eyes filled with excitement. "And maybe some peppers for Daddy's famous chili." "Exactly. And we can show everyone at the next block party how we grew it from scratch," Julia encouraged, her spirit buoyed by Timmy's enthusiasm. As they dug into the earth, planting seeds, Timmy shared stories about his day at school, his eyes alight with newfound confidence. "Some kids were talking about you, Mom. They said you're like a superhero now because you helped so many people," he said with pride. Julia chuckled, her heart swelling. "A superhero? I don't know about that, but I'm trying to be a better version of myself." Ethan watched from the porch, admiring the scene unfold before him. The transformation in their dynamic was palpable, the joy resonating between mother and son, gradually pushing away the fog of doubt that once enveloped their lives. Yet, despite the warmth of the moment, a flicker of unease persisted in the back of Ethan's mind. The community's acceptance of Julia felt tenuous, and while the crumbs of acceptance had been offered, the willingness to fully embrace her remained elusive. One afternoon, while tidying up after dinner, he confronted the nagging anxiety that brushed against the edges of their blossoming family life. "Julia," he began cautiously, his tone reflective, "how are you feeling about everything? With the community and the progress so far?" Julia looked up, knowing what he meant. "I'm hopeful, Ethan. Every day allows me to show I'm more than my past, but sometimes the whispers linger until they feel suffocating." "Yeah," he replied. "Josh's comments at the block party still ring in my ears. Some people just aren't willing to forgive." "I get why they feel that way, but it's hard," she said. "I want to prove to them that I can be more than the sum of my mistakes. Yet I know I'll continuously have to fight that perception." Ethan stepped closer, sensing the heaviness of her burden. "You have all of us here, and we'll weather this storm together. But I also want to prepare you for when the negativity resurfaces. You're fighting a battle not only for yourself, but for our family. The quiet echoed around them, heavy with unspoken fears and realities. Julia met his gaze, determination settling back into her chest. Whatever happens, I won't back down. I can't let my past dictate my future, nor let it undermine our family. And I believe you, he said, smiling reassuringly. You're a fighter, and your growth speaks volumes. I just wish it was easier. Days moved forward, the garden tended and watered, lush and vibrant. Their home became a haven of laughter. Yet, lurking beneath their daily joys was the unshakable notion that community perceptions could shift at any moment, and with them, the delicate balance they had forged. Then came an evening that would test that balance once more. Julia had volunteered to represent the community at a nearby town hall meeting, focused on local development. As the evening drew near, Julia prepared for her speech, a mix of anticipation and anxiety roiling within her. "Mom, you've got this," Timmy cheered, handing her a freshly pressed note card adorned with bright colors. "Just remember, you're awesome." "Thanks, buddy." "Your belief helps," she replied, tucking the card into her pocket. Ethan watched with pride as she donned a vibrant blazer that conveyed both authority and warmth, a true embodiment of who she aimed to be. At the town hall, however, the atmosphere shifted. The initial reception was friendly, yet Ethan sensed an undercurrent of skepticism threading through the audience. Various community members delivered their concerns with enthusiasm, excitedly anchoring on their projects. But as Julia stepped forward, a ripple of tension swept through the crowd, and he noted Josh leaning back in his seat, arms crossed defiantly. Next, we'll hear from Julia Parker. She will share her thoughts on community connections, the moderator announced. Julia took a deep breath, projecting confidence as she took her place at the podium. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. I'm thrilled to engage in discussions about our community's growth. Together, we can create not only a place of unity, but also one enriched with resilience, she began. Her voice resonated, earnest and clear, yet his experience told him the room was a ticking clock. However, Julia continued, I want to address the challenges we face together. Maintaining unity will require open discussions, a willingness to embrace change, and above all, empathy. At that moment, Josh raised his hand, interrupting her. But how can we trust you, Julia? You've made choices in the past that affected many lives, and it's going to take more than words to convince us you're committed to this community. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Ethan clenched his fists. He could feel the tension tightening the air, a palpable reminder of fears that still haunted Julia. Josh, Julia said, steadiness in her voice, you're right. I've made mistakes, ones that impacted my family and others. But every day is a chance for redemption, and I've committed to show that. Words don't change actions, he pressed, and Ethan watched as Julia's expression shifted from determination to something deeper. You're correct. Actions define us, she replied, the gravity of her tone resonating in the silence. And I will prove it, together with our community. But if we allow mistrust to dictate our growth, we will be stuck in a cycle that only breeds negativity. Her words struck a chord, scattering murmurs throughout the audience, many nodding in agreement. Ethan felt the pendulum of opinion begin to swing, watching the dichotomy between a past filled with distrust and a future filled with hope start to emerge. As the meeting concluded, a few clapped reluctant but genuine applause, while others stayed etched in skepticism. When Julia stepped down, she found Ethan waiting to embrace her, a beacon amid the ensuing uncertainty. You handled that beautifully, he said, and the relief cascading through her countenance was palpable. I don't know if anyone will ever fully accept me, Julia said, exhaustion lacing her voice. It feels like an uphill battle every time. We'll navigate it together. You're showing them that you've changed, and they can either choose to recognize that or remain stuck in the past, Ethan reassured, wrapping an arm around her shoulder as they stepped out of the venue. That night illuminated the stark divide still separating her from ultimate acceptance. But Julia drew strength from the knowledge that she was not facing it alone. This journey, riddled with struggles, also brought moments of connection that felt transformative. As they drove home under a canvas of stars, Ethan glanced at Julia, reflecting on the path that stretched ahead. While solace existed in shared victories and lifelines extended by trust and hope, the shadows with which they contended remained unyielding. But they would forge onward, determined to cultivate a future where whispers transformed into affirmations as they rewrote their story together, one rooted in authenticity amidst the noise of the past. The weeks following the town hall meeting unfolded like the chapters of a book still being written, fraught with challenges, yet illuminated by the bright potential of change. Julia worked tirelessly to engage the community while continuing to nurture her relationship with Timmy. The seeds they had planted together in their backyard garden slowly sprouted, symbolizing both the hard work of summer and the promise of renewal. Ethan became more involved in Julia's endeavors, supporting her initiatives at the community center, fostering a sense of partnership that deepened their bond. Yet, lingering in the back of his mind was the persistent worry about the judgment that still surrounded Julia and how their lives would be shaped by the shadows of her past. One Saturday morning, Julia organized a community cleanup event, seeking to beautify the local park. It was an opportunity to engage not just with the immediate neighborhood, but also to demonstrate her commitment to revitalizing the area after people had seen what they deemed as her failures. As families gathered to participate, Ethan felt the anticipation fluttering within him. Perhaps today would showcase more than just camaraderie. It would illustrate Julia's resolve. "Let's make this park shine," Julia called out, rallying the children and adults alike. "Grab a trash bag, pick a spot, and let's show how our community can come together for a good cause." As everyone dispersed, Timmy ran beside Julia, enthusiastically grabbing a trash bag. "I want to pick up the biggest pieces of trash. Come on, Mom," he exclaimed, bounding ahead, and Julia followed closely, infectious energy radiating between them. Ethan watched with a sense of pride, knowing that their family unit was solidifying. Yet, the gathering of community members also drew the attention of those who still held tight to skepticism. Josh's presence loomed like a dark cloud over the day's festivities, an uninvited reminder of the past. He stood with a small group on the other side of the park, whispering among themselves, their eyes occasionally darting toward Julia and Timmy, the disdain evident on their features. Ethan's unease flared as he watched Josh's dismissive gestures. "I'll handle this," he announced to Julia, needing to confront the source of tension directly. "No, Ethan. Let's focus on making it a positive event," Julia urged, her tone gentle but firm. "I don't want to give them the power to ruin this day. Let's show them we're stronger than that." Ethan hesitated but eventually nodded, knowing she was right. The best response to negativity was resilience, and he needed to trust Julia's judgment. As the hours passed, the park began to transform under their efforts. Laughter mingled with the sounds of rustling leaves, and the atmosphere lightened as families worked side by side. Julia moved from group to group, offering encouragement and assistance, her passion igniting motivation in others. Timmy's laughter rang out as he attempted to lift a particularly heavy piece of litter, struggling but finally succeeding with a triumphant grin. "I did it, Mom! Look!" he shouted, holding up a bag stuffed full of debris. "That's fantastic, Timmy," Julia cheered, beaming pride as she tied off her own trash bag. Moments like these, where mother and son were in harmony, reassured Ethan that they were on the right path. However, the day took a turn when Julia approached a small cluster of children, and Josh stepped forward, his voice slicing through the laughter. "You're really trying hard, huh?" he sneered, sarcasm lacing his words. "Cleaning up after your mistakes, I guess." Julia stiffened, her expression faltering momentarily. "This is about community, Josh. It's not about my past." "Sure, but you're not fooling anyone," he continued, an edge of malice in his tone. "We all remember who you were." Ethan stepped in, the protective instincts rising within him. "Enough, Josh. We're all here to encourage our kids to do better. You're only perpetuating the negativity that tears us apart. Why not focus on what we can accomplish together?" Josh scoffed, his gaze fixed on Julia. "I'll focus on the truth. You may have convinced some people, but don't think we've all forgotten the reality." It's hard to believe in a future when the past lingers. At that moment, some community members began to gather, sensing the tension in the air. Many looked at Julia, hoping to gauge her reaction. It was a moment of reckoning, and Ethan could feel the tension coil around them like a snake ready to strike. Julia held her ground, breathing deeply. "I can't erase my past, and I wouldn't want to. I need to be accountable for my actions. All I ask is for a fair chance. I'm here to show my commitment to this community, our community, because I want to learn, grow, and make this a better place for all of us." The crowd was silent, absorbing her words. Ethan could feel the weight of history in the moment. It was raw and vulnerable, yet powerful. He squeezed Julia's hand firmly, hoping to imbue her with confidence. Josh's expression remained inscrutable, but some people in the crowd began murmuring, showing signs of support for Julia's attempt at reconciliation. "Julia, who are you today?" another neighbor called out, echoing back to her commitment. "You're trying to make things right, and that matters." Timmy, sensing the shift, piped up from the back, "My mom is trying her best, and she's doing a good job." His innocent proclamation tugged at hearts, softening the gathered crowd. Slowly, a few families began clapping, breaking the tension. Julia's heart raced, the hope threading through the air noticeable as the awkward glances morphed into nods of acknowledgement. While Josh crossed his arms, the tone shifted. He was losing ground against Julia's conviction. After that moment, people resumed their tasks, but the atmosphere felt lighter. An unspoken alliance formed in the community, rooted in resilience and a collective push for change. As they wrapped up the cleanup process, Ethan watched Julia interact with neighbors, who now embraced her energy, a sense of camaraderie blossoming. The chatter grew louder, and laughter echoed as families enjoyed hot dogs and lemonade provided by local businesses, gratitude coating their shared experiences. When it was time to leave, Ethan felt a swell of pride. "You did great," he said, pulling Julia aside. "How are you feeling?" "I'm relieved," Julia admitted, her expression reflective as she surveyed the park, now shining after their efforts. "But I also feel the battle isn't over. It will always be a process of proving myself." "It's one worth fighting for," Ethan replied, taking her hand in his. "Together we can face this. You have support now. Timmy, the community, me. Let's keep pushing forward." In the quiet moments that followed, Julia smiled, her heart fuller than it had felt in a long time. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered, feeling his unwavering support like a warm embrace. As they drove home, the glow from the streetlights illuminated the road ahead, and for the first time, Julia felt she was not simply shadowed by her past. She was stepping into the light of her potential. Together, they could navigate the complexities of life, weaving through both the celebrations and challenges that lay ahead. In that realization, the road seemed clear. They were on a journey not just toward redemption, but toward redefining what family, community, and love truly meant. With a renewed sense of purpose, they embraced the unknown, ready to reshape their story one day at a time.